Hey guys, Cody Smith here today with strongprogrammer.com. So today I figured out a pretty interesting concept, and it's going to have to do with objects. And objects make everything cleaner and simpler and help you kind of condense everything. And that's one of the best concepts of objects, if you ask me. There's hundreds of benefits, but the fact that it makes your code cleaner and easier to read and find functionality and data in the form of properties, And so what I found out that was really cool is there's a way to create an object constructor if you need to have multiple instances of the same type of object. But still, one of the things that might not be clean in a very large application is you could have a lot of parameters that are getting passed to the object constructor function. Now, if you just have a couple or like five, it's a little more easy to manage, you could say. But you could have a large-scale application where, let's say, let's just throw something out there. I've never created something large enough where I would need this yet, but I'm about to start working on something. That's why I had this idea. Let's say that maybe you had a retail website with 1,000 products that were dog food under the dog food category, and they all shared the same parent dog object. But obviously they all have different pictures, they all have different prices, all the 1,000 listings have different descriptions, and all 1,000 listings have different reviews being generated to it. So there's a lot of different data coming in. This might be a good example of when you'd want to use an object constructor, because you can make all 1,000 objects from the same base object, but you would have a lot of different parameters as well. And one example, another example might be, let's say you had a website where the user actually constructed something. Like, let's say, I think like I don't know how Build-A-Bear Workshop their website is, but think about their store, for example. If it was a website, I've never been to their website, but if you go to a Build-A-Bear Workshop in most mainstream malls, you can take a base bear, for a kid, and you can dress it with all different types of clothing and accessories, and you can change a lot of key features about the bear as well. You can make it fatter or skinnier. They do all that for you. So a good example is the base bear. They might have like 10 or 20 different base bears. So look at each base bear as a constructor object, but there can be a lot of different forms of it depending on how it's built. So the parameters might need to be different, or you might need to have a lot of parameters to be able to build that bear. Now, so what we're going to do today is we're going to use two different types of objects. We're going to create a object literal, and we're going to create an object constructor method, which would think of the idea like my Build-A-Bear or the retail website with 1,000 different types of dog food, and they use different ingredients in each dog food. So we're going to use that's what the constructor object is going to be, and then we're going to use a object literal to store all the parameters that my object constructor will use. And this makes it a lot cleaner when you're going back and maintenance it or adding new parameters, and it's easy to find all the parameters, and you know exactly where they're all coming from. They're all going to be coming from the object literal for the most part. So let's jump right in. This is going to be just a couple minute video. Just stay with me here, and this is a really cool concept. I think it'll help you guys a lot. Hey guys, back with you here, and I shared my screen with you here. So now you can see that I have the basic syntax for an HTML document, and I have my script tags right here as well. So we're going to first start off by creating an object literal, and it's going to be just to keep everything really basic. Just know that you can scale it a lot, like I said before, for larger applications, which is what it'd be the best for probably. We're just going to make a simple objects that are based more on like maybe a car. So to get started here, we're going to say var param, which will store all my parameters assigned to an object literal. Now this object literal is going to be used to it's going to have properties and values that represent the parameters of my constructor object here in a minute. Now, so the first one, we are going to say color, and it's going to be red, and we are going to say passengers, which is how many passengers that can actually ride in it, is going to be 5. We are going to say that the make is going to be Chevy. Oh, I'm sorry guys, wrong syntax here. If you want to put a comma after each property name and value pair as well, if there's going to be one followed by it. The make is going to be Chevy, and we are going to say the year is going to be 1987. Now, this is my object literal right here that I called param, and these are the properties and these are the values. And to you can also put the values as variable names, which would make even more sense in a large application, which is more what I was talking about. So you could put this as a variable named color. You could put this as a variable named passengers or people. You could put this as a variable named make of vehicle, and this could be year of vehicle. And then you can take user input and store it in those variables, and it will populate to this object literal, and then this object literal will pass to the object constructor, which I'm about to create. So now we're going to say the var keyword, Cody's car, I'm Cody by the way guys, that's why I use Cody a lot, is assigned to the object literal, no, I'm sorry, the object constructor, which uses the new keyword, which actually creates the object itself and does a lot of other features for you as well. And then we're going to call the constructor object car, but we're actually calling the constructor function on in this statement right here, and we're storing the return value of it in the variable Cody's car, which will create a new instance of the car object and store it in Cody's car. Store a reference to it in Cody's car. It won't store it in Cody's car. So and the new keyword is what tells this function that it's going to be this function's return value is going to be an object, and it actually returns it from the function as well for you and stores it as a reference in the Cody's car. Objects themselves aren't stored inside variables. Only references to the objects are. That's really good to know, because you could run into errors with that. Now, let's go ahead and jump right in and create the constructor function. So we're going to say the function keyword car followed by 2 pairs of parentheses and 2 pairs of curly brackets. Now, notice that I have the first letter capitalized when you're creating a constructor object. By being a professional JavaScript developer, that's what you want to do, but it's not required. And then you, as well as anybody else viewing your code, when they see that, they know that it's a constructor object function. Now, what I really want to point out here is that we're about to give this constructor object call a argument that will actually be the object literal itself, and then we're going to use that in the code. So let me go ahead and build this out for you, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So Okay guys, now what we're going to do is we're going to save the code, and I want to make sure everything's working right, and then I'm going to talk to you about all this in detail, so stay with me here. So we're going to go ahead and hit Command S, save it, and open it up here. And we are going to say Cody's car dot make. Let's see what happens there. Okay, there we go guys. So now I want to really talk to you about this. So let's go over all this code and let's really break it down. And I want you guys to really know what's going on here, and I'm excited that I can teach you guys this. So now is what's going on is so that we used the var keyword and we signed a new variable named paren. But instead of it being undefined, and just declaring it, what we did is we used the assignment operator and we signed it to an object literal. Object literals have property names and value pairs, and when you're creating an object literal, the syntax is the property name followed by a colon followed by the value. And the value can be any property name. The value can be any primitive data type, as well as functions and arrays. And in an ECMAScript 2015, they added one new thing. Don't quote me on what that is. I can't recall it right now because I'm doing so many things in this video. But there's one other thing as well. But for the most part, people put strings and numbers and arrays and functions right here. If you decide to put a function as the value of one of the property names, that is what's called a method as well. Now, but if you have more than one property name value pair, between each one you use a comma, and you don't put a comma after the last one. You only put it until you get to the last one. So you have a comma, comma, comma. The last one doesn't have one. Object literals always have a semicolon at the end of them, and this is an object literal. That is an object. Now this is a constructor object. Hold on, I'm sorry. This is a constructor object and a JavaScript constructor object, and this is a JavaScript constructor object function. This and this work together with a new keyword, which is very powerful. It's what makes all this possible. And they can create new objects instances where you can create thousands of, like I said before, if you're creating a Build-A-Bear, you can create thousands of different types of Build-A-Bears. If this was called Build-A-Bear, then we could name this Build-A-Bear as well, and this function could create thousands of different types of Build-A-Bear, all from the same parent object. But it's not, it's a car. And we could do that with cars too. We create thousands of different cars from the same parent constructor object named car. But in this case, we only created one different car, which is called Cody's car. But I could keep going with this, and we could do this. Oh, I'm sorry. I could keep going with this, and we could say Cody's new car, and we could just change certain things about it from that. Instead of passing it the paren object literal, we could create a new object literal, and we could also pass that as well, or we could change things, and you can do anything you want to do to make your program work. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this line of code. I did return the constructor object function. That isn't required, so we're going to put not required. That is because the new keyword, among many other things, it does this for you. It is what tells the function that you are actually building an object, and these property name and value pairs are going to be the new object, and it's what's telling the constructor function that it's a new object of car, and it's what stores a reference of it into Cody's car, as well as many other things. So param, just so you guys know, is my argument that I'm passing to the car function call, and it's passing to the parameter past p, which is actually a local variable. If you didn't know that, guys, parameters are. You just don't have to use the bar keyword because the JavaScript interpreter understands it. So then you can see that my parameter passes here, and here, and here as a value of the property names car.color, car.passengers, car.make. Instead, I just used this keyword. It's actually, I'm pretty sure, required, but I like using it anyways. Since it is an object that I'm calling in, I can't just use the parameter name. The parameter name just acts like I'm saying param, the object name. So past p is like saying param dot notation. Oops, I'm sorry. So past p is like saying param, which is the object name, then you're saying dot notation, then the property name is color. We're saying that, so we're saying param dot color, and we're using dot notation to access that. So, and then down here is what we did is we said, since this created a new object of car and stored a reference to it inside Cody's car, Cody's car is now an object with the properties and values of this block of code right here. So Cody's car, if we were to call any of these properties and values, they actually exist inside Cody's car. And right now, in memory, after we run this program in the system's memory, it would actually look like this right here. So in the system memory, we could call, we could say Cody's car dot color, Cody's car dot passengers, Cody's car dot make, Cody's car dot year, because that's you don't see it in my code, so that's why it could be kind of confusing if you're not new to objects or not experienced with them. But it's not in my code, but it's there, guys. Now, so what I did right here is I used the console object and then dot log method, and I said Cody's car, which is my new object, dot make. See the property name right here. So it should pull up the value Chevy, and you can see right here in my console that it logged out Chevy. So everything's working just great, guys. So now is what we want to do is let's go ahead and do one more. Cody's car dot color. There we go. You can also do Cody's car, use square bracket notation, year, and it should pull out the year of the page. Not sure why that's not working out there, guys, to be 100% honest with you. Because, watch this. Well, you should be able to call an object from saying the object name is the syntax, and then use dot notation and then the property name. You should be able to call any object's property name, which will return the value by this syntax up here. But you can also do it by this syntax without getting too much off subject. I'm about to end the line, in the video, I'm sorry. But without getting too much off subject here, I'm saying the object name. I'm really doing the same thing as dot notation and the property name. You can also use square bracket notation because property names are really, they are really strings. So you can do that, and that's correct syntax. This is correct syntax, just like this is correct syntax. This is actually the more correct way to do it, and how JavaScript actually runs in the background. But the JavaScript interpreter, it's understood that you can do this. So even though the other way is a more correct way to do, I know this sounds weird, but the recommended and professional way to do it is how I did it. because it's cleaner to read and cleaner for other developers to read, and less typing and symbols and text and numbers you have in your code, the cleaner it is. And since the JavaScript interpreter understands it, it's better to do it this way. So that's why you can also call it with square bracket notation, and you can put just like you can create a property name as a string, that's what it really is. You can call it as a string with square bracket notation. But I'm not sure why this isn't working here, as I've never tried to use square bracket notation on an object literal that I passed to an object constructor object. But with that being said, let's go ahead and call year anyways, or call it on the original object. I just want to see what happens real quick. See, there we go, guys. So you can tell my syntax does work. So you can say console object.log method, and you can put the name of the object and use square bracket notation and call the property name. Why Cody's core? Cody's core year doesn't work that way. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to try this one more time. See, as you can tell, it's just not working because I did pass it as a, I guess when you, I'm not sure that. I want to really research that. I might do a video on it in the future. I'm sure you guys don't really care because most people like this way anyways with dot notation. There's a few benefits to knowing how to do it this way. But all in all, you know this way works normally when you're using an object, but maybe it's because I passed it as an argument to a constructor object and then it got returned to Cody's core. The JavaScript interpreter doesn't let you access property names using square bracket notation when an object has been passed to an object constructor. And it makes a lot of sense because everything is made by the function and new keyword. I'm guessing, my best guess, it has something to do with the new keyword. Doesn't return it in a way where it lets you use square bracket. Doesn't return the new keyword. Doesn't return the new constructor object. It's referenced in the Cody's car in a way where you can still use square bracket notation. But that's good to know, guys. We just figured it out together. It's always a learning process, and I really want to know the reason why. I don't know why, because normally, it's more important in JavaScript as a professional developer to know how to do things and to know what things do not work. For me, it's really important to know exactly how things work and exactly why they don't work in detail. But most JavaScript developers will say that's not important. That's actually the whole point of objects, to be able to hide the functionality of all of your program inside objects to make code cleaner. But so as long as you know that it doesn't work and dot notation does work when you pass an object literal to an object constructor like we just did, is the main key to take away from this. But I'm still going to do some research for myself. I might write a blog on strongprogramming.com when I figure it out. But thanks, guys. That's going to be the end of my video today. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I also have a article going up here in a few today, maybe today, on strongprogramming.com on the same subject, and I may document this as well.